I recently got a chance to have like a month long free trial of Showtime,
Mhm.
and on there they have a JFK Revisited, and it's
Ah,
like a 2 hour long look back at the movie JFK.
okay.
And it's
Ooh.
directed by Oliver Stone. I forgot to mention this to you, but like it's like all the questions brought up in that movie originally with like facts 20 years later, like revisiting all that. Check that out if you haven't had a chance.
Oh,
Pretty
okay.
cool.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's
It
called
also.
JFK Revisited.
Oh, first I gotta get Showtime.
For sure.
I have HBO, but I don't have Showtime. Also, remind me there is an update to a story we did a couple of years ago.
Okay,
That's
cool.
kind of pertinent, like a little bit. Well, side note to what we're doing here. So, all right, let's get weird with the Abraham Lincoln assassination. You ready, Ogul?
Let's get weird. Yep, I'm here for it.
Okay, we're going to lay up the basic facts first. On April 14th, 1865, Abraham Lincoln. Who was Abraham Lincoln? Well, he was the 16th president of the United States of America. Any other questions? Okay, we're moving on. Was assassinated by a well-known stage actor, John Wells Booth, while attending the play Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. He was shot in the head as he watched the play. Wow, that's one way to get out of a play. Honey, this sucks. Oh,
Talk
God.
about making a dramatic exit.
It was like, God, Jesus Christ, this place sucks. I wish someone would shoot me in the head.
Careful what you wish for, AB.
Abraham Lincoln died the following day across the street at the Peterson House. He was the first American president to be assassinated, with his funeral and burial marking an extended period of national mourning. And again, like we said, this occurred during the tail end of the American Civil War. If you don't know what the American Civil War is, I don't know how to help you.
It's a weird time, man. Neighbors turned on neighbors.
Yeah.
It was a weird time.
Yeah, weird time, man. And it was all fought over taxes and tariffs and states' rights, man. Oh, man.
How long did the Civil War last for?
About 4 years.
4 years. 4 years.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, that's a long time.
Yeah. And it was a fault over slavery.
Right. That's the narrative that's been told for a long time, right?
That's another narrative. No, it was about states' rights. No, it was about a group of small minority of people owning another group of people.
Right.
And not just any people, black people.
Crazy. So this is what, like the last year of the Civil War, or like the Civil War had officially been declared over at this point?
No, it wasn't officially declared over. It was almost over. It was pretty much. I mean, historians will say it was pretty much over. Because Lee had surrendered to Robert E. Lee had surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant at Appalachia's courthouse in Virginia about a couple of days beforehand.
Okay.
So they considered it kind of over.
A few days before the assassination, Robert E. Lee surrendered?
Yes, he surrendered. Pretty much just... there was a bunch of generals during the war. Lincoln had a bunch of generals that commanded his Army of the Potomac, which was his largest army that they had. And mainly they were fighting because even though there was fighting all over, there was fighting in the West as far away as California, and it's fighting in the North. Probably, I think the most northern part was like Philadelphia, Missouri. I don't know which one's more north. I think Philadelphia is more north. But mainly not mainly, but not mostly, but what historians typically focus on is the Eastern Theater, the mainly Virginia, pretty much. It's just
mainly, okay.
Virginia. Yeah, you had the largest army because it was like Richmond and Richmond, Virginia, which was the capital of the Confederacy, and Washington D.C., the capital, U.S. capital, were about 100 miles away from each other. So pretty much, it's the Union, the U.S. trying to take Richmond, and the largest army was the Army of the Potomac for the United States, and for the Confederates. I don't think this was the largest army, but the most significant army was the Army of Northern Virginia. And it was led by first Joe Johnson, and he got wounded, and it was led by Robert E. Lee, an aristocratic slave owner. And they would win pretty much these big battles or survive these big battles. And the Army of Potomac would constantly try to catch Lee, because you beat Lee, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You walk into Richmond, you take Richmond, game over.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, for a while, that there was really bad generals that they had leading the Army of the Potomac. Well, not bad, but guys not even ineffective. They first had a guy named McClellan, who wouldn't fucking fight. And then Lincoln got sick of him, finally got sick of him, and let McClellan out. And before he let McClellan out, McClellan was responsible for the Battle of Antietam, which was probably the most bloodiest battle that the United States had ever fought in their entire history. Like, more people died in Antietam than died on D-Day or Normandy.
Oh wow, that's wild.
So he replaced him with a series of generals, and none were effective at beating Robert E. Lee, except for one guy, the last guy, Ulysses S. Grant. And he ends up pretty much just throwing men at Lee, just throwing them, because the United States was able to replenish their troops, but the Confederacy had a hard time replenishing their troops. There was around 30 million people living in the states that decided to stay in the Union, and compared to 9 million people who lived in the Confederacy, and 3 million were slaves.
Of the 9 million?
Of the 9 million, 3 million were slaves.
Wow.
And you ain't handed them any guns, because then the war's really over. So, yeah, they had a hard time replacing the men, the Confederacy. So Ulysses S. Grant just pretty much threw guys at him, did as much as he can until he's able to walk into Richmond, and then he ends up starving out the Confederates until Robert E. Lee says, "All right, we've had enough. We all don't want to die, so we surrender."
Okay, so this was a few days before the assassination.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thanks for that little history lesson. I don't think I knew it to that detail, but
yeah, I mean, there's a lot with the Civil War that you go on. This is not the proper podcast to do this historical podcast. You can listen to all throughout. I think American History Tellers is one of them, or History That Doesn't Suck is a pretty good one. They go through most of the intricacies of the Civil War, and there's other Civil War just base podcasts out there, or because there's a lot. It's guerrilla war in the West. It's a lot of stuff. So yeah, it happened. Lincoln was assassinated towards the tail end of the American Civil War. His assassination was part of a larger conspiracy. It intended by Booth to revive the Confederate cause by eliminating the three most important officials of the United States government: the president, the vice president, and the Secretary of State. So he had a list of conspirators. Lewis Powell and David Heron were assigned to kill the Secretary of State, which at the time was William H. Stewart. And George Atzerodt was tasked with killing the vice president, Andrew Johnson. But the plot failed. Stewart was wounded, and Johnson's attacker got drunk, decided, this shit ain't for me, and decided to leave.
Wild. Okay.
So, okay. The conspirators were all caught and sins of justice. We'll get to that a little bit later. So let's talk about John Wells Booth, because he's the main guy. He's the assassin. Abraham Lincoln. Everyone knows about Abraham Lincoln. He couldn't tell a lie. Was he the one who couldn't tell a lie?
Was that him or was that Washington?
Or was that Washington?
I'm not sure.
I think it was white. It was one. You know what? They were white.
Yeah, right.
They were white. Yeah, everyone knows about Lincoln. Yeah, Lincoln, born in Kentucky, lived in Indiana, made a stake in Illinois, the rail splitter, the old honest Abe, stupid hat. Never got that hat. Yeah, but no one, well, not a lot of people aside some history buffs knows about John Wells Booth. John Wells Booth was born in Maryland to a family of prominent stage actors. He became a famous actor and a national celebrity before the assassination. So, to give you a sense of how famous John Wells Booth was, what's a good example? It would be like, I would say, Tom Holland shooting Joe Biden.
Wow, so he was pretty famous.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. So
well Tom Holland was a little bit younger and prominent. Yeah, Tom Holland. Yeah, I think that would be Tom Holland shooting Joe Biden. That's how famous he was.
Because he's like in his 20s, right? When this all goes down. John
I think he's in his 30s.
He's in his 30s.
Late 30s.
Okay, got
no, it. late 20s. I'm sorry.
Late 20s. Okay, so he's pretty young.
He's pretty young. Yeah. His family. His dad was, who was his dad? I know his name. I just can't say it. So the tip by Julius Brutus Booth.
Okay, so
he was a famous British Shakespearean actor, because his brother was also famous too. Edwin Booth. They were all Shakespearean actors.
So his whole family was a family of actors.
The males in there were a family of actors.
Okay.
Yeah, he was also an outspoken Confederate sympathizer. He loved the Confederacy. He loved the Confederacy. He thought there was nothing wrong with slavery, even though his family didn't own slaves. In late 1600, he was invited to join the pro-Confederate Knights of the Golden Circle in Baltimore, Maryland. The Knights of the Golden Circle, they deserve their own episode, which I don't know when we'll do, if we ever do, which I would like to do probably, but the Knights of the Golden Circle deserves their own episode. It was a secret society that was founded in America. They wanted to create a new country where slavery will be legal forever, mainly in the Latin America.
Okay, that definitely sounds like
they're a secret society. Yeah, but they deserve their own episode. I'm not going to go too much into the Knights of the Golden Circle because they deserve their own episode.
Okay.
So, yeah, so Booth's a Confederate sympathizer. During the war, he tries to join the Confederacy, but they won't let him because how famous he is. And his family is mostly either pro-Union or just ambivalent. Mainly they're pro-Union because they want to keep working as actors. Edwin is mostly working as an actor. His brother working as an actor in New York. They're touring a lot, so they're mostly pro-union or trying to give off the appearance that we are pro-union. Because if you say you're Confederate, then hey, you didn't cut off most of your income, because most of the big shows are in New York and Boston and Philadelphia, Chicago. Those are the big time. So,
right, okay.
But he had pro-Confederate Confederate sympathies. He tries to join again. He tries to join. He goes nowhere. So he becomes kind of like a carrier a little bit. Taking secrets and stuff like that between the Confederate agents. Most famously, he ends up going to Montreal, Canada,